going, folks? We are back with another edition of the Caught Stealing Fantasy Alarm MLB podcast. I am joined again this week by James Grande. Colby is taking care of his wife this week, so go do you, go be a husband. We got this. How you doing there, James?
Doing well. It's
Been a little bit of a rough week for you, I know too. We were talking off air.
yeah. Yeah. My son is sick, and with multiple sicknesses at once. So
Never fun.
it's been a lot of not leaving the house, just
Yep.
stuck indoors. We got him outside a little bit today, but starts running and then he starts coughing. It's like, all right, shut it down. We're headed back to the room. So it's been a rough week. It's been an interesting time in baseball. I mean, obviously, there's races shaking out. The Yankees have, as a Yankees fan, they have their largest lead since June 25th. 1.5 games on Baltimore.
Yeah, the Orioles are doing their darndest to lose.
They are
the wild card too. I think that the Royals are 2 games out.
Very
of
close.
The first wild card.
Yeah. I mean, it's and obviously the NL nobody loses in
Correct.
The NL West. So it's been a really fun time. I would say it's been really disappointing with some of the injuries that have taken place in some circumstances. Obviously, we're going to see a lot of different. I think there's certain situations that really need monitoring. There's pitchers that are coming up on innings that have never pitched before, i.e. Paul Skeens, and we saw the report today before his made start. We're recording this on Thursday evening. That their manager basically said hey, there's no innings limit, there's no pitch limit, but we are also gonna be smart about this. He's entering territories that he's never. So it's an interesting time.
A couple other guys too with the in the AL Central.
Crochet and Scooble. Those are there's a lot of situations that are going to need monitoring, and I think it's worth really diving into which teams, which players are most susceptible to that. We have a short list now. We just mentioned it: Skeens, Crochet, Scooble. But they're not going to be the only 3 guys. When you turn the page to September, you're like, this guy's on a 4-inning cap. This guy's on a 65 pitch limit. Whatever.
You and I have talked about the Yankees starters a couple of different times on this pod. How basically everybody outside of Garrett Cole, and I guess Rodon, are question marks for innings. We just saw Luis Gil go down with an injury. But then you have ex-Yankees like Michael King. What do the Padres do with him? Because he's approaching.
They just sent Matt Waldron down. I don't know if you saw this. The report.
Yes, about 10 minutes before we started recording.
But the reporting is that they're trying to save him for later in the year. So Matt Waldron is not a guy that I think. He's not pitching well, but it's not on a radar that they're just trying to save. So there's going to be a lot of interesting end of season monitoring that's going on with pitchers here.
Yes, there is. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. There's some Pirates news in their rotation coming up. We'll talk some injuries, and then we'll try to get you ahead of the game here to stash some guys for possible September call-ups. And then we'll give you some waiver wires and some weekend streamers to round it out. But first, big name went down this week with a broken hand. Austin Riley. He'd been struggling for a little bit. They sent him for some scans. It revealed a fractured hand. He's now out 6 to 8 weeks. So maybe if Atlanta hangs in somehow for a playoff spot, maybe he's back. But other than that, his season ends. So that's a little unfortunate for the Braves. It's another huge piece of their offense that's not there. I don't really know where we go from here for them, but it's definitely a bummer to see Austin Riley's season come to an end prematurely.
It's been story of the Braves season this year. Starting with Spencer Strider, then
Correct.
to Acuna, and now to Riley. And like we've had Michael Harris,
Albies is dealt with a wrist.
Albies, Harris. I mean, it has been endless amounts of injuries, and yet, like, kudos to them for being where they are. Like even being
Correct.
in this mix to make the playoffs. I mean, they're not going to win the division.
No,
They
the Phillies are coasting with that.
But they do. I mean, they have found a lot going into next year. Spencer Schwellenbach has been amazing for them. Chris Sale has revitalized his career. They have a good bullpen. So like, there's a lot to like. But obviously, the Austin Riley loss hurts. I do have like a couple thoughts in terms of waiver wire pickups potentially. Just looking at some ESPN leagues, and there's not going to be many of these guys available in more different formats. But when you're talking about ESPN, if you're playing ESPN fantasy baseball, I was shocked to see this, Matt. Mark Vientos is only rostered in 24% of ESPN leagues.
What do you mean? That guy has been
Incredible.
bonkers this year.
Incredible. Junior Caminero, 21%. Someone that you and I talked about, I think last week. He's 21% rostered. He hasn't obviously come around, but he's going to have free reign to play into.
He's a full-time guy this late in the season.
Full-time guy.
You got to get him in there just for bats to see what happens.
Colt Keith is third base, second base over on ESPN. 13% rostered. So just like three names that are available in over 75% of your ESPN leagues. If you need a replacement for Riley, because unfortunately he is not returning. He is done for the year. So if you do need a replacement for Riley, I'd say prioritize those three. But salute to Austin Riley. Kind of a disappointing season in general, but again, that's long list of Braves that can say that.
Their season last year was so historically good from everybody. You had to expect, the
injuries were unfortunate. The injuries, I would say, like that. This is a very bad luck team this year. Like from where they were last year to how injured every key piece to this team is. That is just so unlucky.
Correct. Yeah, they're 1 through 4. 1 through 5. 1 through 5. It was injured for basically all of the season, and yet they're still holding together in a very crowded NL playoff situation. We're going to touch on one more injury here before we get some good news. Ketel Marte. It was hoped that he could avoid the IL. He missed 3 games, and then came back and played, and then re-aggravated it, and then they were like, "No, you're on the IL. We're not taking any chances at this point." So that is a big loss, not only for fantasy, but clearly for Arizona. He's been in the MVP conversation this year. He's been unreal all season, going from like a 22-game hit streak where his average actually dropped to it now coming back up. And power, speed, just everything for Ketel Marte this year.
I'm looking for the meme that I wanted to pull up for Ketel Marte's MVP race. It's the when the grandpa in The Simpsons walks in. Is it Simpsons? Yeah. He walks in and then he walks out.
Yes,
that's Ketel Marte's MVP case this year. Now that he's injured, he walked in the room and then he left because then Shohei just.
I mean, it was a long shot. It
was a long shot. It was a long shot.
Because Shohei's having a ridiculous season, and you've got a couple other guys we talked about last week that could be in there. But yeah, it's definitely a blow. For fantasy, look, second was short coming into the season. It hasn't gotten any better. Clearly, we just talked about Albies has been out for a while. Now we got basically the best second baseman in baseball. Is how they're hoping it's a minimum stay. So they're hoping maybe by this time next week, Ketel will be back. So I guess that's the good news. But if you're in a weekly league, you're going to lose 2 weeks from him. So that
there. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of options on the waiver wire. But no one to the production of Ketel Marte. That's just you're not gonna find that type of production. But at least he is going to be back for the September stretch.
That's true. So We get a couple of bigger names starting to come back now. We got four of them. So Justin Verlander was just activated for the Astros on Wednesday evening. The 41-year-old is returning to pitch. He hasn't pitched since what, June?
He pitched.
I think he
Yeah. I
pitched
mean, it's
early
been.
June.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 3 games. I have to. I mean, looking through this, guy's pitched for
Yeah.
150,000 years.
But then he
No, the
also
last
has
time he. Yeah, June 9th, and yeah, June 9th.
yeah, okay. And then the Pirates are looking to get Jared Jones back early next week. He had a tune-up rehab start. He struck out 10 in 5 innings at AAA. Didn't walk anybody. Barely allowed contact. I think we're pretty good to go there. He's going to be back early next week, and then the Twins get a pair of guys back in the next week or so. Byron Buxton and Brooks Lee. So of those four, who are the most intriguing guys to you? I mean, Jerry Jones probably number one, right?
All right, I'll rank the four rest of the season. So I would say I want to put Jared Jones one,
Yeah.
but another
Innings,
situation where I do think that innings is an issue. So
yeah. Especially since
2020,
he kind of came out of nowhere this year to really shoot up prospect
right?
rankings and you know, just dominated in spring training, and he was everybody's name to know.
So 2022, he threw 122 innings. And
Yes.
obviously the strikeouts have been at every level, including the major league level, right? He has missed
Yeah.
bats everywhere. So I'm sure that was like on the radar, but the rest of the repertoire hadn't fully developed. He is at 102 combined between AAA and the major leagues. So that's if he were to surpass it, 20 innings. My expectation is he's going. I mean, if you throw 5 innings, 10 strikeouts with 1 hit, your next start is at the major league level. Like there's
Correct.
he's not making another rehab start.
Yeah, he's eligible to return, I think, the 26th.
He will return. Well, that puts him. He made that start the 21st, so that would put him basically on schedule
Yeah, I think that's when he's
for his
anticipated
normal.
to come back, would be the 26th, which is I think it's what, next Tuesday.
So like you have to assume that's 5. So if he makes the start on the 26th is Monday. So if
Okay.
he were to
We
make
got a
that
Tuesday
start,
week.
he makes 5 starts. I mean, he's probably around the 140 inning mark at that rate. I guess that it just depends on how Pittsburgh wants to expedite his innings.
Yeah.
Because they don't want it to be 122 hard stop, right? You want the
Correct.
advancement. So I'm good with Jared Jones rest of the season as long as we don't hear what we heard today from Shelton about Scenes, where there's going to be some type of pullback or monitoring,
I
right?
think Skeens is different because
This
he
is his
didn't get
first
a
professional
full.
season. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, he got drafted last July
yeah, it's
and
crazy.
pitched like 6 innings last
Yeah,
year
this is his
in
first
pro ball.
professional season. Yeah, I mean,
So it's understandable, and they don't pitch that many innings in college. So
Jones is 1. I would say Buxton is 2, considering how good he was offensively. Verlander 3, Brooks Lee 4. The Brooks Lee thing is interesting because he was so good when he got called up. So good, like amazing. He looked like he was never going back down to the minors ever again. He obviously hit a slump, and I think we've seen that from every rookie in the history of the game. Like,
yeah, pitchers figure out, hey, if I just throw you breaking pitches, you can't catch it.
right, and
you look ridiculous.
Am I going to sit here and say Brooks Lee doesn't have a very bright future in front of him? No, he looks the part. He can play any infield position. You could play him in the outfield. Like, he hits for power. He has a little bit of speed. He's a really good contact guy. Like, doesn't strike out, even at the major league level. Like, didn't strike out. It's just I don't know what Minnesota's going to do because they called Julian back up and he's been good. But like Julian is very limited. He's not going to play against lefties, and Brooks Lee's a switch hitter. They're not like Austin Martin seems like he is comfortably on the team right now, but because he's good outfield depth, and they have Kyle Farmer and they have Jose Miranda. So there is a lot of,
and they have Willie Castro at shortstop,
and they have like that. Yeah, I wasn't even mentioning Castro because like he's solidified.
Right, he is their leadoff switch hitter. He's putting together a good year, and he's playing a very good shortstop. So
when you look at it, like there's a chance Brooks Lee doesn't get called back up, and he's in the minors, dependent on one, if Matt Wallner continues to hit, because like Wallner will vacate, like he could take one of their bench spots because Buxton presumably is not going to play much outfield moving forward, which is why I think, Austin Martin's going to stick around, and you have Manny Margot who's going to play versus lefties. So like there's a lot of riding on Wallner and Julian for me to get Brooks Lee in this next week or so. Because if Julian keeps hitting, they might just keep him up. And if Wallner keeps hitting, they're going to keep him up. Brooks Lee has 3 options left, right? So they could option him and be comfortable there. Obviously, you and I both hope that doesn't happen for personal reasons. Potentially getting a actual shortstop on our roster could be useful. But
generally, yes, it's useful to
have a shortstop. Yes, we have not had luck there, but I would say in terms of ranking priority on waiver wire or priority just wanting like having them in fantasy, Jared Jones, Byron Buxton, Justin Verlander, Brooks Lee in that order for me.
I'm with you on that one. Buxton looked phenomenal before he got.
Dude, he's been great.
And he's signed to a long-term deal, so clearly he's got the money behind him to get. They're not sitting Buxton, right?
No, they're going to DH him.
Was always about Brooks Lee and where does he fit? Because Brooks Lee has versatility, but like, does that actually help you that much when people ahead of you are actually playing well?
Right.
And you have options. You're 23, and everybody else ahead of you is already in their age 25 and plus season. Yep. So there's that too. So real quick, don't have to talk a lot about it, but real quick, the Cardinals are a team that have long been known to be very good at developing baseball players. They may not have the flashiest prospects all the time, but they would come up and they would play well, right? Kind of like the Giants, just get guys that show up and they're baseball players at the major league level, right? Well, the other day they optioned Nolan Gorman to the minors. He's been pretty bad. They also optioned Jordan Walker. We're talking about 2 top 10 prospects in baseball that everybody had in the top 10 of prospect rankings. Aren't working out. So what is going wrong in St. Louis right now that they cannot take, that they're taking guys that have just immense amount of talent and cannot develop them, yet guys who nobody ever thinks about, like Brendan Donovan and Tommy Edman and whatnot, show up and play pretty well, although Edman is obviously no longer on the team. But it's just a weird time in St. Louis, something we're not used to seeing.
Yeah, I mean, both those guys have massive strikeout issues.
Yeah,
Nolan Gorman especially.
I think he's 38%.
Yeah, just a hair under 38 career high at any level.
I mean, he's hitting a lot of homers, but I guess when you strike out that much, it kills whatever rallies you have him come up in.
I mean, I think you can live with last year's Nolan Gorman hitting 230 with 27 home runs, but he's now hitting 200.
Yeah.
And his slug is down 80 points, and his strikeout rate's up 7 points. It's just there's no consistency. There's no contact. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer for like what they're doing. I think obviously my mind immediately will just go to like maybe it's time to make changes there specifically, and maybe it's time to like, you know,
I know the Cardinals fans would love to see a new front office and regime there because
yeah.
they
I mean,
are
I mean,
very unhappy with a lot of stuff.
analytics. We all see it. We all have the access to all the data. So whoever is reading the data and cold zones and way like adjustments that hitters need to make, like clearly there's a disconnect in St. Louis right
Correct. So clearly, we will not be targeting Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman as September call-ups, although neither of those guys really count as prospects anymore because they've used theirs up. But there are some pretty intriguing names that we're going to want to pay attention to coming up in September. Now, one thing to note is for the last couple of years, it's only been 28-man rosters in September. They've not had the 40-man rosters in a couple of years now, so it's not like you're going to see everybody from their farm come up at some point or another. It's only 28-man. So you're only getting 2 extra guys. A lot of the time they use it for extra bullpen pieces, extra pitching, as we talked about, to maybe abate some of those innings questions about Skeens and Tariq Skubal and Garrett Crochet and Michael King and, even some guys coming off injuries like the entire Dodgers pitching staff. Um, but there are some big name prospects that are heating up right now that might be up. I think the number one guy we see is Dylan Cruz. I think Dylan Cruz is getting the call. Part of me is hoping as a Nats fan that I get to see him this year and we get a little bit of a taste. And then he comes in next year with his feet already wet in the major leagues and, doesn't have to play catch up for,
now.
3 weeks like we saw James Wood do. But he's really crushing baseballs at AAA right now. He's on an absolute tear down there. It's only a matter of time before the number 2 pick from last year's draft comes up. I can't remember the last time the top
Just
2
insane.
picks from the same class came up the following year. Like
Never.
I don't think it's ever happened.
Never. I doubt it's ever happened.
I doubt it's ever happened. But then the Cubs have a couple of guys who could be up because they need basically, they're just testing things at this point. Owen Casey, another one of their vaunted outfield prospects, could be up, as well as Moises Ballesteros, who plays a little bit of catcher and a little bit of first base. I think he's mainly a first baseman at this point. But both of those guys have pretty intriguing skill sets. They're both at AAA. They're both playing pretty well there. Ballesteros, if he comes up as a catcher, has one of the better hit tools for a guy who's catcher eligible. Has nice pop. And then, what's your thought on this? How about a little bit of a Martian sighting? Jason Dominguez. You think we see Dominguez come up?
I do. I think sooner rather than later, because I think as soon as he gets called up, he takes Alex Verdugo's spot and never looks back. I don't think there's a long term. I mean, Verdugo obviously signed for 1 year and has been atrocious. I would say the only reason that does see time is because he's a plus defender, but he's not taking a bat to the plate with him. So where the Yankees are struggling is every bat outside of Judge, Soto, and most of the time Austin Wells, and everybody else can hit. So I would say like
they are getting Rizzo back in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's so exciting. He was so good.
Was so good. Yeah, I missed on that one.
No, I mean it's he had the perfect swing for he's just older, right?
Yeah, he had the perfect swing for like a decade, and then it fell apart.
Yeah, and then so I think Dominguez gets recalled because we obviously had the 1 game sample against Tarek Skubal. That was unfortunate for him, but I do think I mean that's not fair.
No.
I think he is your starting left fielder sooner rather than later.
I would agree. And then kind of on a side note, you kind of got to see what he can do in case you do not win the Soto free agent lottery at the end of the season.
I personally don't think there's any doubt on what he can do. Like offensively. I mean, he was
Yeah.
hitting third in his first game last year in
Yeah,
Homer,
the
right?
guy
Like,
the guy has 5+ tools. Like,
I don't think anyone in the organization doubts it. I think there's just been a logjam this year with Judge, Soto, Verdugo, Grisham, and then obviously the whole Tommy John stuff. So like he hasn't played the
sure.
outfield too much. So I don't think there's a doubt on what he's going to be. It's just getting him once he gets to the majors again. I don't think he leaves ever.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. The Yankees' other top outfield prospect, Spencer Jones. I don't think we see him.
Nope.
He's down to AA right now. I don't think there's any reason that they're going to jump 2 levels with another 6'7" outfielder. That's right. They have another one coming, just in case you thought they were getting shorter at any point. Nope. Although hilariously, Jason Dominguez is hilariously short.
Yep.
He's 5'9". They call him the Martian. It's hilarious, and he's like almost a foot shorter than Judge.
Well, so is every
I mean,
normal sized man in the world. I think isn't that
yeah,
isn't I mean I think 5'9" is taller than the average male in the United
I think
States.
5'9" is about the average.
Well, I mean, okay. Well, Aaron Judge
Somewhere
is
between 5'9" and 5'11", I think, is the average height
well,
for.
Judge is 30 feet tall, so of course he's a foot taller than everyone else.
That's excellent. That man is a skyscraper. Um, and then another interesting Nats one. Brady House has finally found a swing that he's been working on for a couple of years now in the minors. He's looked pretty good at third base at AAA, and the Nats have desperately needed a third baseman since Anthony Rendon left. Interesting stat though, I saw the other day that because the Angels played the Nats at Nats Park, which would have been Rendon's first trip back to Nats Park, except he's injured because of course he is. The Nats have used 19 third basemen since Rendon left after the 2019 season. The best part, the Angels have used 28 third basemen since they signed Rendon.
I was gonna say that he's probably played that many games. He's probably played 19 games
He's
since then.
played about a season's worth of games in 4 years. But either way, Brady House may come up and get some time at third base, see what the Nats have there in their likely next, hopefully, franchise third baseman. And the last one is a guy who's been a little bit positionally blocked in LA, Dalton Rushing. He's a catcher. He can play a little bit of first base. I think they claim he can play a little bit of outfield. I don't know how well that's going to work. But Dalton Rushing has been positionally blocked, so I think they bring him up, let him get his feet wet, and they may trade him this offseason because he's not getting any playing time sitting behind Will Smith.
No, he is not.
And they have about 4 other catchers that they could develop and turn into their next feature backstop too. So
And he's also not playing outfield over anyone
no,
that they have currently with Mookie
no, I
Betts
think
back
they bring
there.
him up and play him at first base so Freddie Freeman can get some off days with that broken. He's got like a broken finger. He's just playing
Yeah,
through
he's
at this
playing
point,
through. Yep.
basically. Um, but yeah, it's that time. We're gonna wind things down with our waiver wire pickups of the week and our streamers of the weekend. So, Grande, why don't you lead us off? You pick which one you want to give first. Doesn't really matter to me.
I'll go. I'm gonna go streamer first because I really like this pitcher.
Excellent.
And I've liked him since specifically moving into the starting rotation for the Toronto Blue Jays. He is your reigning, defending AL Player of the Week. That is Bowden Francis. He has looked really, really good as a starting pitcher, and obviously, like started in the bullpen. He's 28 years old. This isn't like this newfound
Yeah, he's not a problem.
prospect that Toronto has just stumbled upon. But he does have a very good pitch mix, and he also misses a lot of bats, and that has been the one thing that I've noticed with him as a starter that you don't really get that like full effect as a relief pitcher. He's mostly used as a long man, but you're talking about a guy who's made 3 consecutive starts now And in those 3 starts, 7 scoreless in Chicago, 7 strikeouts, 7 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts in Los Angeles, the Angels, and then 5 innings, 2 earned runs, 7 strikeouts against the Orioles. His last 3 starts have resulted in 7 plus strikeouts and 2 earned runs or less. And obviously, the Cubs and the Angels are not
Not the
like
most threatening
world beaters. No, they're not. But guess what, Matt? On Saturday, he gets to face the Los Angeles Angels once again. So I am very intrigued by Bowden Francis and kind of how well he has pitched. And if they do have something, again, like it's not the first time a 28-year-old baseball player has become something, and it won't be the last time a 28-year-old baseball player has
Yeah.
finally figured it out, right? We saw Jurickson Profar turn into an all-star this year. We turned Reynaldo Lopez turn into an all-star starter this year. We have seen it time and time again where people reinvent themselves and start figuring out later in their careers.
Yeah, Reynaldo
So
Lopez.
yeah, so I think I'm really interested in streaming Bowden Francis and like see where the schedule takes you after that, because it's like if there's continuous like if he continues to build on what he's done and we continue to get this, he might just be worth the roster. He's a really tall guy. He's also, I think, interestingly enough, like depending on your format on ESPN, he's starting pitcher and relief pitcher eligible. So if you do have like position specificities, those tongue twister there,
Yeah.
in your leagues, I mean, you can slot him in either of those slots. So Bowden Francis is my streamer of the week.
So I'm gonna go with my guy here. Pretty happy the Cubs gave this guy to the Nats last trade deadline for Jamer Candelario.
He's your guy, or is he hers guy?
He's hers. He's hers. DJ
Okay,
Hurd.
he's hers.
Lefty starter for the Nats. He's facing the Braves, which pretty depleted offense right now.
Yeah.
And since the All-Star break, the Braves lead baseball in strikeout rate versus lefties at almost 32%. Which is
Not
no
good.
bueno last time I checked. I mean,
Not
it is
good.
if you're a pitcher, but not for your offense. Their 225 average versus lefties in that span ranks 7th worst in baseball. And hers in August has been pretty good. He's pitched to a 2.79 ERA across, I think, 4 or 5 starts. I think it's 4 starts in August. 22 Ks in 19 and a third innings. He's looked pretty good. So I'm going to go with him streaming. He's rostered in, I don't know, 37% of Fantrax leagues, I think, something like that. If you want to hang on to him, go for it. But he is a little bit, if he doesn't strike guys
Volatile.
out, yeah, he's a little volatile. So we're gonna stream him on Sunday. He's pitching against the Braves, and interesting, the Braves are gonna get a steady dose of lefty pitching because the Nats have 4 lefty.
I know they only have lefties. Yeah, they only have lefties.
it's pretty remarkable. And then interestingly, I'm gonna take the opposite end of this matchup for my waiver wire pickup.
Okay.
The Braves offense needs help, right? Whit Merrifield is there. It's not sexy, I know, but frankly, it's late August and there's nobody sexy left. But in 22 games with the Braves, Whit Merrifield's hitting 265. He's getting on base 38.5% of the time. He's got 14 runs in the 22 games. He's stolen 5 bags, only 1 homer, but he was never really a power guy anyway. If you got some power, great. He was really there for average and speed, and that's what he's providing again. Fits second base, third base, and outfield in most formats. And he's probably going to play darn near every day at this point, given that Austin Riley's out for the rest of the year. They just had to sign, I think, Gio Urshela off the scrap heap to play third. Ozzy Albies isn't back yet at second, so Whit Merrifield can play there. They really don't want to have to play Marcell Ozuna in outfield, so Whit Merrifield can fill in the outfield when they need him to as well. So that's my guy that we're picking up this week. He's been really good for Atlanta so far.
He has, and that's a nice little. He has a little speed boost too. He's stolen a bunch of bases lately. I like that pickup. Shallow position to at second if you need a second baseman.
Right. I mean, if you
And the
lost
eligibility
Ketel,
is,
you
yeah.
lost Ketel, now there's Witt, not nearly the production, but you're still like 265 average and 5 steals. Not going to kill you.
I'm also going with a second baseman, so I guess this is a second base riddled show.
See,
But I'm gonna go.
there's nobody to fill in for Ketel, and now we're giving you two dudes to go.
No, yeah, now we're going. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Gavin Lux, and he has been. I mean, like, he is
Post,
a
post, post.
former. Yeah, I mean, there was he was a prospect, a
Yeah,
highly rated prospect.
he was at one point the Dodgers' #1 prospect.
He just didn't hit, and
Correct.
then he saw the rearview
He also
mirror.
didn't field.
He also
So
didn't field. He saw the rear view mirror and saw what was coming for him with Max Muncy. They traded for Tommy Edman, and this man has not looked back since. Since the All-Star break, Matt, Gavin Lux, 356 average, 421 on base percentage, 663 slug, which comes out to just under an 1100 OPS, 455 WOBA. And during that span, in 31 games, he has hit 7 home runs. He has driven in 21 runs, scored 17 runs, and he's hitting in the middle of the Dodgers lineup that, like, he is hitting 5th in a lineup with Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Teoscar Hernandez, Max Muncy. And he's hitting in front of like 3 of those dudes.
Yeah, no longer Jason Hayward because they DFA'd that guy.
And no longer Jason Hayward because he's gone. So, like, there's just going to continuously be, and we'll see if the production holds up. Obviously, like, it's been a 30-game sample for Gavin Lux. Yeah. For a guy who has played a professional. Yeah, I mean, since 2019, right? That was his first year.
Yes.
That he played. So we'll see if it continues. There's no reason to think with how well he's played, and no reason to think that why would pitching approaches change? Why isn't Gavin Lux the one getting all the pitches to hit versus those other 6 names, right? So I think there's a lot of opportunity for Gavin Lux to continue his ascent to, again, post-sleeper hype that we're seeing from him. But yeah, I really like the Gavin Lux pickup. On ESPN, interestingly enough, second base outfield eligibility. So he does have multi-position eligibility over there as well.
Always nice to get the second base outfield spot. So that'll do it for this week on Caught Stealing. We gave you some streamers in Bowden Francis and DJ Hers. We gave you some waiver wire targets in Gavin Lux and Whit Merrifield. We talked about some of the September call-ups we may see coming up in just about a week or so. And talked about some of the injury guys coming back and why you should go. If for some reason somebody dropped Jared Jones, I would go pick him up like right now. But that'll do it for this week's Caught Stealing. You can catch James Grande on Twitter at _real_Grande. And you can catch me there on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at the Salesman. And for Colby, who should be back next week, we will sign off and hope everybody has a good week in fantasy baseball.